Hey, what's going on? How you doing? I'm here with Scott, and we got another edition of What Did I Just Watch? It's the what is this? A podcast? Just a discussion, I guess, on the little ins and outs and weird little off the main road type of things. When you think we're gonna zig, we zag type of content.
You think I'm over here? I'm over there.
And as always, Scott Taylor is my partner in crime in this endeavor. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the 80s sitcom and the very special episodes of the 80s sitcom, which was almost a genre within in and of itself. And it was the height of the sitcom, right? And so take it away, Scott. What is this that really kind of captured your attention about this subject?
Yeah, so the reason this is a what did I just watch is just the shock value looking back at it.
Yeah.
I think in the moment when these episodes were on the air, they were a little shocking because it was about topics that were a little uncomfortable and wasn't in line with the normal filmed in front of a studio audience type of sitcom. But then looking back on it now, it's even more like that's rough, the way they just talk about that stuff. And then what they were saying about it, you've got AIDS, you've got drugs, you've got all sorts of things with these TV shows that just were usually lighthearted. And then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you with a very special episode that would just be publicized as such. Well, and you'd build up to it and you'd be like, oh, this week's episode, someone's getting AIDS. And you're like, what?
Crazy. And I think what add to what made it so jarring was the bumpers, the pickups, the ads where you would have like, this week on Family Ties, Alex must, and then on a very special episode of Cheers or whatever it was, and it was, oh, we got to watch. And it was also, it was kind of like a weekly thing. I mean, in the 80s, it was a different thing now with TV because, well, I'll get into it later, but yeah, I mean, it was just a really kind of jarring thing. And it was in the 80s. So it was kind of like in this age of slogans and kind of not censorship, but it was more of like, just say no and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
It'd be a sharp left turn when you were sitting there watching and, you got your snacks, came back to watch, the next part of the episode is coming on. And then the commercial, like right before it starts is like, next week you got this hijinks going on. Watch as Carl slips in a pie. And then
on a very special episode.
Yeah. It'd just be a left turn. And it would happen mostly during sweeps weeks, right?
Yeah,
like we don't have that really anymore. It's sweeps weeks were just like, these are the really important weeks. And I don't know why they were important weeks. And it was just marketing. And it's like, these are the weeks that I think the advertisers would look at for the next season to see like, what do they want? What are they pulling in for viewership? Yeah. And they wanted to get all the viewership into their shows.
Yeah, and I forget to look that up because I did remember Sweeps Week, but I didn't look into what time, because it happened like twice a season, right? It was like, because the season would start in September and go to like May, like a school year basically, and you had like sweep weeks in like the fall. And then you had it like in the spring. I think if I'm remembering it correctly, I'm not sure on that.
The dates I'm seeing on my list here, there's a lot of like January, February stuff. Okay. And then there's like November, October type of dates. So
it was kind of this age. And, I would say too that the sitcom is not what now it's totally different now. Now you have 500 channels and back then you had 3 channels. You had 3 kind of networks, major network. I mean, you still do, but that was all that there was. So there wasn't any kind of like, well, let's turn it to CNN or whatever, Nickelodeon or something and watch what's on there. You just didn't have that option. So, and it was more family centered. So you could schedule I remember, Thursday, okay, it's Family Ties, it's Cheers, it's this, it's that. So you would kind of have these moments but these days where you would kind of schedule your kind of not after school, but like the evening activities around the TV. And it was always there, and it was always every week. And so, yeah, it's such a different time.
And these were important too, because, as much as we say the current generation is raised by like their iPads.
Yeah.
Gen X, we were raised by television.
Yeah.
And so this is how we learned a lot of these subject matters.
Yeah.
This was the television teaching us. Our parents didn't necessarily teach us this stuff. This was us learning, oh no, you can't get AIDS from swinging on the same swing set,
right,
you know?
Right. Yeah.
So this was really important back then. It was like a half hour or hour long PSA.
Yeah. And sometimes they would cut it up into like, all right, part 1 and part 2, and part 2 was next week. So you had to come back the next week and make sure you got the ending. And let's just get to like our not and keep in mind we're not making light of the subject matter of these things. We're kind of making light of the fact that this was, like we said in the intro, like it was just kind of I don't know, jarring.
It's very raw.
Yeah.
The way that I approach it is very raw. There's not a lot of cushion to it. It's just very blunt and in your face.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny looking back on it now because you're like, whoa, that was pretty just dropped right on you there, that line.
Go ahead, Scott. Start us off and kind of getting into all these episodes and what made them good.
We can jump around to the ones that we're big fans of it, and thinking about them all, I kind of grouped them into 5 different categories. First category being abuse and predatory behavior.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's going to be, getting molested, abducted, family, friends being overly touchy, that type of thing. Second category is drug use, addiction, and peer pressure. So you've got, just standard drugs or caffeine pills, even in some instances.
Yes.
Even the show Dinosaurs had a steroids episode.
Well, they had a pot episode too.
Dinosaurs?
Yeah, they had the one where I just saw this right before he went on air. Like, he found a bush and he would eat the bush and it would get him like, in their words, it would get him lazy and chill. And then he got the whole family addicted. And then at the end they realized, oh, this isn't, this ends. This isn't like, we have to keep doing this in order to, keep this going. Yeah. It was anyways, go ahead.
I only saw the steroid run where you started eating these little fuzzy monsters and would get he got ripped overnight. The teenage son, he got ripped overnight, but then he had these pointy things sticking off of him like horns all over his body. So you have drug use, addiction, and peer pressure. I kind of rolled those all together.
Uh-huh.
You have grief and emotional loss, right? So you have sadness, friends dying, family dying.
Yeah.
One of my favorite is in that, and we'll get to that in a moment. You have health, illness, and safety. So that's where you're going with, AIDS and HIV.
Yeah.
And you're going with, but it was a lot of AIDS and HIV in those special episodes. And then danger awareness. I call kidnapping, guns, and refrigerators. That's basically the catch-all at the end, that there's something dangerous that can come at you and get you, whether it's an old fridge left out, or quicksand, even, or gun safety.
Was that the MacGyver special episode?
Yeah,
the quicksand. Oh shit. Yeah. So keep going. Sorry, didn't mean to.
So do you have anything you think will qualify the abuse and predatory behavior? Because I think the biggest one that we all remember is Dudley.
Yeah,
and the bicycle man from Diff'rent Strokes.
That was. That was kind of Diff'rent Strokes was my first sitcom that I remember watching on, like, I have to watch it the next week. I was a kid and it was like there was kids as the stars. So I just immediately jumped on this. Yeah, I remember looking back and researching that episode. The guy that did the stuff was Gordon Jump from KRP. So you had this kind of, because usually there were the, probably like, what do they call them? Like actor of the week kind of thing. They weren't really big, but this one was kind of different because this was a guy that everybody knew and was popular. And he had a career afterward too. He was shilling, washer and dryers and refrigerators.
He was the Maytag man. Yeah.
Yeah. Maytag man. That's what it was. And so that one I remember seeing. And I don't remember actually watching it, but I remember the effect and seeing it, because when I watched it on YouTube, I was like, I kind of remember this whole thing. And then they had a couple of Diff'rent Strokes had a couple of episodes like this, and they were really kind of not groundbreaking, but I think they were at the forefront at least of kind of introducing all these things. Because again, it was the time of Just Say No, and you had these parental groups, and this was a big issue in the 80s. So it was a good audience to do it because you had the whole family pretty much watching it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that episode, going back to it, there's a lot of just like you can tell even with the laugh track, it's just a lot of uncomfortableness.
Yeah, and
just with how upblazing it is.
did they have now? I can't remember because usually when they would record it in front of a live studio audience, they would tell you. Did Diff'rent Strokes record it in a live in front of? Because if not, this was a laugh track, and sometimes I think they use it a little inappropriately because yeah, it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was live or if they just laid that in later in these episodes.
Yeah, so yeah, that I remember that one. Let's see, that was. Then there was. Oh yeah, we go into Webster too. That episode of Webster. Well, we have two, but this one's for the abuse. So that would be what the swim guard, the swim was it the camp counselor
for Mr.
Webster?
Belvedere.
Yeah, Mr. Belvedere.
Mr. Belvedere. Yeah. So Mr. Belvedere, there's the counselor episode. That was in 1988.
88.
Different Strokes Bicycle Man was 83. It was February 5th and 12th of 83. So it was, you had to wait for the second part.
Yeah.
And then, so Mr. Belvedere, you had the counselor, which was May of 88. And that's when Wesley, he's inappropriately touched by a summer camp counselor. Yeah. And then you can find that bumper. I sent it to you on YouTube of it's like, oh, the hijinks happens. And then it's like, and then on a very special Mr. Belvedere, no, don't go with him. Why not, Wesley? Because he did it to me too. It's just brutal. And that one, they actually, at the end, you would always see Mr. Belvedere writing in his journal and there'd be a voiceover. And at the end of that one, it was him and Wesley and they were talking to the camera.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it's like, hey, like normally you'd see me writing, but here we want to tell you like, hey, if this happens to you, tell an adult, call a phone number.
That was another touch that they added because in the Dudley one, Conrad Bain, who was the father in the show, addresses, I think the audience before the episode, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Yeah. So that was another big kind of thing about these is that they kind of broke the fourth wall. They do it in Growing Pains. They do it in a lot of other sitcoms where at the end they would just kind of be like, hey, you know what? So yeah, that was another little characteristic of these episodes.
And so it's tough because some of these are just episodes that were just in the normal, stream of a season and they weren't, maybe billed as a very special episode. It's tough to see which ones were actually billed as special episodes versus just, it feels like it was a special episode topic.
Right.
You had Family Ties. Family Ties, there was a Mallory one where she was made uncomfortable by a family friend.
Yeah, by an uncle during a telethon. I kind of watched some highlights from it. And yeah, he makes a pass at the beginning. And then the episode is her trying to tell her parents. And I think she tells Alex. But, she tells it. And then at the end, he does it again. And then he ends up telling her mom, and then her mom during this telethon was like, "He made a pass at her," and he's just like, "We'll be right back." But that, Family Ties too was one of my favorite shows. I remember seeing it maybe in the middle of the first season, maybe the second season, and that was like, okay, I'm hooked on this one. And so they had a couple of them, and Tom Hanks was a big guest star in this. He was in Family Ties as Uncle Ted or Uncle Ned.
Yeah,
Uncle Ned, and he had some issues too. So Family Ties was a big one. Yeah,
that takes us right into drug use, addiction, and peer pressure because that was a big episode. He smacks Michael J. Fox, and he gets drunk and he starts playing his clarinet at a job interview.
Yeah. For the TV station, right? Was that it? Yeah. That was crazy, man.
He downs a whole bottle of vanilla extract. Like then you're just teaching kids what you can use at that point. It was like, that'd be like going, hey kids, go grab your air duster cans.
That was, and the stunt that Michael J. Fox had to do, that was pretty impressive. I mean, do you think that was a stunt man? There was no time to cut. And then.
Nah, it probably was him back then.
Dude, that was impressive. Like just throwing yourself onto the couch and falling on the floor. It was just, that was a good one. Yeah. That one was drug use and peer pressure, right? Which, another one was Silver Spoons, but we'll get to that. Keep going.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the dinosaurs and you brought up the pot one and there's the steroid one. November of 90, you had Jesse's song in Saved by the Bell. which was her classic. She gets hooked on caffeine pills to try to do everything.
Yeah.
And she gets them knocked out of her hand. She's like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared.
I saw that in the when I was doing the deep dive for this. I saw that, but I'd never watched. I wasn't a big Saved by the Bell watcher. I did see a couple, but it wasn't. It was always Saturday mornings at like 11. It would be on, and so by that time I'm done. I'm out. So I didn't watch a lot of that, but yeah, I never saw that. So what happens in it? Because the deep dive that I got was that there was a lot of things happening in this episode.
She was really trying to get into Stanford, and she was so focused on her grades and stuff and getting her grade stuff done. And Zach Morris, like he always does, throws himself into hearing her and her two friends there singing. And he's like, hey, I know somebody that can get you a record contract. And I can be your manager and make money off of it. And so they start doing that, and she has to start doing both things, but she really wants the school thing to work out well, and she has her responsibilities there. So she starts taking caffeine pills to just stay awake longer. Yeah. And then at one point she falls asleep, and he finds her and he wakes her up. She's like, oh, I need my pills. And it's funny because it's caffeine. It's, it's Vivarin, right? She's taking Vivarin. They took a very special episode and boiled it down to the lowest, like other than dinosaurs taking drugs, that's probably the very little next step up in the drug scales.
Well, that pairs along nicely with the Family Ties episode when Alex gets addicted to caffeine pills and starts to just he just doubles it, like he ramps it up. Everybody's like, what's up with Alex? And then again they have the where's my pills? And they have to hold them, and it's okay. And that was just as jarring. I think for me that was as jarring as the Dudley one from Diff'rent Strokes, because I never thought drugs in that way. I think I was probably like 8 or 9 when that episode came out, the Family Ties one, and had no idea what caffeine pills were. So I mean, like to your point, is this something that I can get over the counter? And then okay, not that I ever did that, but again, it's like planting that seed, and like, okay.
Yeah, I remember getting pulled over. I was maybe 19 or 20, and the cops were like, we gotta find anything if I search your car. I was like, just Vivarin and Marlboros. That was my response. Just some caffeine pills and some Marlboros.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you smoked. Okay, so
drug addiction and peer pressure. There was also there was an Alf where he became addicted to cotton, and then he had withdrawal-like symptoms from it. My favorite though, my jam back in the day, in my wheelhouse is Punky Brewster.
Oh,
I watched a lot of Punky Brewster.
So did I.
And
so did I.
The drug one, it was Just Say No. It was in 1985, so right in the middle, and at the very end, they show them in like real life in a Just Say No march.
Oh, really?
But the episode is they're in with the popular kids in her treehouse, and one of the girls comes and goes, "Hey, I got some drugs," and she just pours them out of like a cigarette container, and it looks like Willy Wonka laid out a bunch of candy. It's like I think she says something like, "I've got uppers, some weed, some nose candy." You're like, what?
It's just like downers, all arounders. Come on, what do you want?
It's just like chiclets, it's just all sorts of stuff. It's just, that's my favorite part of the whole episode, is just you see this little candy smorgasbord just laid out as she dumps them on the floor.
That was, again, so you can pair these episodes with other, because a lot of the sitcoms at the time, they it wasn't exclusive to just one, and they would also often kind of reuse the same thing. So like Growing Pains, when Mike Seaver goes to a party and him and Boner go to a party and they go to a party and all the popular kids and the girl that he likes is doing some nose candy, and they're all
Christy Swanson.
Yeah. They all go into the bathroom, and he's just like, and what else? Who else did that? We could probably sit here and go through them, but
yeah, the drugs were a big one.
Yeah.
And going back to the inappropriate behavior one, and the Webster one, the guest star there, she wasn't guest star at the time, but I think her name's Allison Sweeney.
Oh, yeah.
She was on like Young and the Restless or one of those soap operas for a really, really long time. Now she does all the Lifetime Hallmark movies. So it's funny seeing all those kid parts back then, like all these kids playing these roles in these special episodes too.
Yeah. It was kind of cool. So yeah, we did the growing pains. What else you got? We got the health and illness, right? Is that where we're at?
We got grief and emotional loss first.
Oh, okay. All right.
So grief. So that brings you to family ties in your wheelhouse. My name is Alex. Alex, 1987. 2 parts aired same day, back to back. The second episode was commercial free.
Yes.
Right. And it's all about the death of his best friend.
Yeah, and it was staged. That was a great episode too, because that was staged like a play. The second half was staged like a play. So you had kind of like a stage, a darkened stage, and you had, he'd be walking around at different points in his life, and you would have the thing where they would just be standing still, and he would walk in, and then they would start the scene, and then he would walk out, and that was a good one, man. When I was doing the research, I was like, I gotta watch this one again, because I remember remembering at the time that was. Oh man, and I think he won an Emmy for it, or a Golden Globe, or whatever I think Emmys are the sitcom ones, but yeah, I think he got an Emmy for that one, so it was a good one. Yeah, it was a good one.
It dove into him, not just his friend dying, but he was supposed to be like with the friend. He was like, "Hey, I'm not going to go on that chore with you or whatever." Yeah. So he was like, "I should have been in there. Like I'm survivor's guilt, and also loss."
And yeah, it was just kind of, he hit it out of the park with that one. I think that one kind of solidified the reason why I love that sitcom so much. What about yours? Do you have one that's like that? It hit you like that?
Yeah. So this is my top one, I think, other than Dudley Getting Diddled, is Punky Brewster Accidents Happen.
No.
And so this aired on March 9th, 1986, and it was about 6 weeks after the Challenger disaster.
Oh, that's right.
So it was put into production very quickly. It was thrown in there, and Punky starts off. It's career day at school. It's all the kids want to be different things. One's dressed like a ninja. One's like, I want to be. I want to be in the army, or I want to be a doctor, or whatever. And she's like, I want to be an astronaut. And she brings her dog Brandon in with her, which you're like, that dog shouldn't be in school. That's a more progressive thing. And so she's like, I want to be an astronaut. And the teacher, Mike, is like, I'll bring in my TV. And then you start picturing him lugging one of those old TVs into his classroom the next day. And we'll watch the Challenger, take off. There's a teacher there, and it doesn't show them sitting there, watch it. It shows her come home and run into Henry's arms. And she's like, it exploded. And he's like, what? He doesn't believe her.
That actually happened. I mean, that was happened probably. I remember watching it too in my class, and I made some really, really stupid joke during that. I remember all my friends were like, "Oh, too soon," but it was kind of traumatizing, because everybody in this. I remember the teacher going, "Okay, hold on. Oh, it looks like they had some problems," and then she left the classroom for a bit, and like. We were just sitting there like, what happened? Then she came back in and she explained what happened. And it was kind of brutal, because, at that time you just did. I was into space too. I had all the Star Wars books and space books and all this. And so it was, it hit me pretty hard, that one.
Yeah, not everybody gets diddled. Not everybody has an uncle that drinks a thing of vanilla extract, not everybody knows someone with AIDS.
That did, but that's neither here nor there.
That's next week's episode. But this, a lot of kids, like you said, watched this live. It was a big thing to watch it in school, and so they could relate to this. And I think it also had another part of special episodes where you have a guest star. Right?
Oh, that's right.
Buzz Aldrin shows up and tells her, "Hey, no, keep being confident, keep being brave, and we should still do this."
Yeah.
And not be afraid of it. Because all her friends sitting down talking after it were like, "You want to still be an astronaut? You're dumb. Like, why would you do that?"
Right. This is kind of off topic just a bit, but I was watching 90210 last night, and it was going through. I think I'm in the 3rd season, and the one before it was kind of where Brandon gets caught up in gambling. But the one after that, Burt Reynolds shows up for a cameo. So that's it wasn't a special episode, or a very special episode. But anyways, go ahead, keep going.
And the one that I go back to for grief and emotional loss was even as far back as Mr. Hooper on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And when Mr. Hooper died in real life, and they do
Did you see that at for real? Like
I don't remember seeing it live. I remember knowing who Mr. Hooper was when I was younger, but I don't know if I was old enough to understand that part.
Yeah. I remember watching that, or I remember watching Sesame Street, but I remember Mr. Hooper, and then I remember him not being around. And I'm pretty sure I saw that scene or that episode, but I don't remember watching it. But I do remember that he died. I remember asking somebody, where's Mr. Hooper? And they're like, oh, he passed away. So yeah, I was too young to understand that stuff too.
Yeah. And dealing with all that stuff during these, otherwise aparted shows.
Yeah.
Oh, you crashed my car again? I'm sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
What were you doing? I was trying to impress my friends,
son. Yeah. And they use that type of teaching moment.
That was about as dark as they got. And then these ones, it's like, yeah, no, my friend died and I should have been alongside him. Like, I should be dead right now.
Yeah.
It's brutal. You have any other that you think grief and emotional loss?
Let's see. This one is abuse. This one goes, okay, never mind. Hold on. I don't have any that fit into that one. I have one that fits into the first one, which was the, what is it? Oh, the Silver Spoons episode where he befriends a kid, Punky Brewster's older brother, actually, in real life. And he was, he showed up with a black eye, I think it was. And then he shows up with a broken arm in a sling. And he's like, what's going on? Oh, I fell down. And it turns out his dad is the abusing him, beating him and stuff. And so that's the first one. So yeah, I don't have any for this one, but I do have one for the next one.
Well, that's Silver Spoons. It's like the two dads kind of talk it out and to get to the bottom of it. And it's like the end, he's just like, the dad goes to like therapy and the kid goes to live with his mom, I think.
Yeah.
For a little bit, or grandparents. And that's how they solved it.
Yeah. They tie it up all neatly in 22 minutes. It was great. It fit in. So, yeah.
So health, illness, and safety. What do you got?
Oh, okay. I'm probably going to steal your thunder on this one, but
let's go for it.
The first one that comes to mind is the Punky Brewster one with the trapped in the refrigerator that Henry wants to throw away. And he ends up wanting to I'm going to take off the door, but I'll do that later.
It's snowing. It's starting to snow. It's like, dude, how long is it going to take you to take that door off? It's like, what, 4 screws maybe?
I'll catch hypothermia. What are you talking about? Yeah. And yeah, that one was brutal too, because there's a callback on that in that episode where at the beginning they're all learning CPR. And that one kid is like, I don't need to learn this.
Stupid Alan.
Yeah. And so he takes off and doesn't learn, or he gets thrown out of class or something, the principal. And he's one of the ones that finds Cherry with who was the dad's name again?
Henry Warnemont.
Yeah. And they find Cherry and she's passed out and he doesn't know how to do CPR. So then Punky and who else?
Margot.
Was it her friend Margot? Was. Yeah. And they ended up saving her life. And that was a scary one for me. I remember seeing that one too. And I remember that there's so many things in the 80s that it was around that refrigerator, because I think Back to the Future in the original story, Back to the Future, the time traveling thing was supposed to be a refrigerator. And then they were like, okay, yeah, we don't want kids climbing in refrigerators. And then Indiana Jones, fast forward to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he gets in the refrigerator and there's a big hoopla about that. I don't really care either way about that one. But so, yeah, I mean, refrigerators, it's a dangerous thing, know? So
yeah, one thing I knew as a kid is not to climb into a refrigerator.
Yeah, watch out for those Maytags, man.
Yeah. Or the Maytag repairman too, apparently. Catch you from both angles. Either going to suffocate you or they're going to suffocate you.
Shit. All right, cool. All right, so you got any more for the health and illness safety issues?
Yeah, it's a boatload of AIDS, my friend. It's
my goodness.
The Golden Girls had an AIDS episode, like Rose awaiting results of an HIV test. That was in 1990. There was Hogan Family, 1990.
Oh, that one. That was
David's
brutal.
diagnosed, yeah. And then, like we said earlier, Mr. Belvedere, Wesley's friend. 1986. Just the bumper, just everything about it. Kid comes home. He's like, oh, my friend's not going to be at school for a while. I was like, why? He's like, oh, he got caught with AIDS. It just walks off, and the parents and Mr. Belvedere just stand there looking at each other like solemnly.
Before we dive into that, you forget the Walker, Texas Ranger one, right?
Yes. Yeah. Walker, Texas Ranger. Walker says, I have AIDS. Just out of the blue, Haley Joel Osment, right? Like just, ooh.
Oh my God. That was the kind of, I think it was their way of kind of fitting in the subject matter into kind of, it just shows you how, what am I trying to say here? It shows you how hard it was in everyday life to talk about it, because these are the kind of things that they just were like, well, I have AIDS, and there was no sugarcoating it or anything like that. And you could tell because of these episodes, the way they're written in, it was just kind of awkward.
Yeah, even in the Mr. Belvedere episode, it's the kid comes over and they're like, "How you doing, champ?" He's like, "Well, other than having AIDS, I'm okay." And
he's like a comedian. Yeah, he's like doing a bit.
He was being funny about it, but he was like, other than that, I'm fine. Like, I'm okay. Yeah. Like, don't worry about me.
Yeah. It was. I think you just had to approach it that way, because I think nobody knew how to talk about it. And there was a movie that came out, and I think in 89 or 90, 91, somewhere in that. It's called And the Band Plays On, which was about the AIDS epidemic coming out in the early 80s and during the early 80s, and how people were catching it, and how people identified that specific kind of virus with people that had it and all that kind of stuff. So I think the 80s were a ripe time to talk about that stuff. And that was luckily like Mr. Belvedere, you had to kind of approach it with comedy, because that's how, in trying to get into the households, that's probably how you had to do it. So, yeah.
And that's how people would get facts about it. You'd be like, all the stuff they said on there, like, I heard you can get it from sharing an ice cream cone, or I heard you from a swing set. It's like, that's where you would learn, like, no, that's not how any of this works.
Right. And that's, I think, probably still people that think all that stuff too. But, it was a good way to kind of get the message out in these kind of things. In these episodes.
And aside from AIDS, there was also Facts of Life had one where Natalie contemplated due to academic stress.
Yeah.
And that was in 84.
Well, they had another one where I'm probably going to have to bleep out on this, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, there was another one on Facts of Life where a friend of theirs kind of was like Mrs. Popularity, and she won like a beauty pageant, and she was like getting into a school, and she was the new girl in the dorm there where everybody lived. And she, at the end, she ends up kind of doing the deed, and that was a rough one. I remember seeing that one too, and it hit because, like you said before in the opening, like these shows are kind of laugh track comedy, lighthearted, and when they would hit with these episodes, you were just like, as a kid especially, you were just like, I'm never doing that, that. At least I was a really naive kid, but
there was a lot in it that you were like, oh yeah, I know that's something serious. Even as a kid, you're like, I know this is a serious subject, and I shouldn't take it lightly. And you learn something from it.
So
the final category I got here: danger awareness.
Danger. Oh, wait. Was that danger? Okay,
well, I mean, health. A lot of these are overlapping. So, like health, illness, and safety. Like safety can be a fridge. You're okay there.
Okay.
But so the other ones you had there. So, my pick from this list is the Webster, where he burns down his apartment, and he gets a chemistry. Like they got a chemistry set in the house.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And they're like, you can't use this unsupervised. I mean, he's like, this is boring. And his dad is like, oh no, you can do a lot of fun stuff with that. So he sneaks it to his room. And he ties a rocket to his teddy bear. He's like, you're going to space, Mr. Bear. And he lights a match and lights the fuse, and it doesn't like go. And someone comes by to knock on his door, and he goes, oh, and he hides it in his closet and just forgets about it.
Yeah.
Goes to sleep and wakes up, the closet's on fire.
Yeah.
And it just burns down the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember that was was that a season ender? I think that was like the last, was that? I can't remember.
So it was season 2, episode 5.
Oh, 5. Okay. Middle of the season.
But after this one, since they burned down the Chicago apartment, this is where they were planning on moving them to a house, where you remember his house where he could like sneak in the clock, and he had all these hidden tunnels and stuff. Yeah, this was the last episode
Okay.
leading to that. They stayed with a friend in an apartment for a couple episodes, but then they moved to the house.
Yeah, because I remember the house one too. I remember the house things too. Yeah. Let's see. Danger. What was it? What's the title? Dangerous
Danger awareness.
So this one, there's a bunch that I got on here for this. Okay, I got two. I'll do two. Let's see the Diff'rent Strokes episode, the hitchhikers, when they go hitchhiking, after they're saying, and they get caught by that dude that wants to say the Kimberly, and Arnold gets away, runs home, and at the nick of time they come in and they save her. That was brutal. I mean, I remember that was scary. That was like NYPD stuff, like, or NYPD blue stuff, like, or SUV stuff. That was kind of brutal for me, that one. And then there's the, Growing Pains with special guest star Matthew Perry, who falls in love with, or I can't remember her name, the daughter in that one. They start going out, they fall in love, or they fall into intense like. And he gets in a car accident, and she visits him at the hospital and stuff. And she comes home, and she's a blah, 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 blah. And Mike Seaver, he gets the call, and he's like, "Oh, what?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go see so and so." And she's like, "You can't. He died." And they all. I mean, that was brutal for me. I remember that one. What do you got for that? What do you got for this one?
Yeah. So the other one is like gun safety.
Okay.
Right. So there's a lot that are gun safety. There's there's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode, where they get mugged at the ATM. And then Carlton was like, "I'm gonna go, get revenge." And they're like, "It's not worth it. Like, revenge isn't worth it."
Right.
So there's that one. There was a Family Matters that was similar, where Laura's nearly shot. And then there was a Silver Spoons where Ricky brings a gun to school after being threatened.
Oh, wow.
It was The Trouble with Harry. One. Yeah, it was in 1986.
Oh, wow. What's a gun? I mean, I don't know if this is not a sitcom, but yeah, I know 210 in season 2.
Was that Scott?
Yeah, and he accidentally, I think he's playing with the gun. Or
he spins. He's like, "Look what I can do," and he spins it around on his finger.
Yeah, and so gun issues too. It's to this day, it's still an issue. But the 80s sitcoms were really kind of laying it on thick on this one, because you can go to any sitcom, and there was. Did you say the one Family Matters? Yeah, you did, right?
Yep. Yeah, that was 95. So, I mean, I feel like the gun stuff started coming up. There was some of it interspersed in the 80s stuff, but I feel like a lot of it was hitting in the 90s.
Yeah.
And, and there were other things in the 90s too. Like, I didn't list anything here from Full House. There were some Full House episodes about, kind of anemia and weight loss and
eating disorders.
Eating disorders. There were a lot of stuff involved there. But I feel like at that point, it wasn't really a very special episode. It was just part of the storyline.
Right. I think that's what kind of this 80s thing. I mean, and I wanted to ask you too, really quick, about the state of the sitcom now, because like I said, back in the 80s, you had 3 major networks. I mean, you had 4 if you're counting the late 80s, because Fox comes in 86, I believe. And you have all these sitcoms and shows that the family kind of rallies around the TV, like in the old times when TV was invented. And now you don't have the sitcom. I don't know if the sitcom is like what it was, Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's very few new ones that I would go, "Hey, I should go watch that."
Yeah.
It would be really tough for me to hop in there. And I love myself a good 30-minute episode. Yeah. Right? It's great. Yeah. You're watching, eating dinner, sitting on the couch, like you could throw it on. It's not a big commitment. They're great. But I don't see a lot of new ones that catch my eye. And it's a lot of going back to older completed series. Yeah. Like I know my daughter's a teenager. She's watched American Housewife, I think it is, with Diedrich Bader. She loves that one. And she's gone through Modern Family a bunch of times. Okay. And she'll just rewatch those, I want to say older, and they're not even that old.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, there's sitcoms that have been on for 6 or 7 seasons, and I have never heard of them. There was this one, I think a couple of years ago, there was this one called Mother with Allison Janney.
Yeah.
And I thought, I saw the ad and I'm like, oh, it's a new show. She's going to TV. Okay. I wonder what it's about. And it was like, oh no, this is the series finale. Series finale.
Yeah.
And I look back and there were 6 seasons of it. I'm like, oh, I'd never even heard of this show. And there's a lot of them like that. There's a lot with Tim Allen that I haven't seen. He's done like 2 or 3 since Home Improvement, and I've never heard of any of them.
Yeah.
I think the last time I've heard of anything was, or what that I paid attention to was like King of Queens and that era of TV shows. But I think that was it. Dharma and Greg, I think, was what, late 90s? I don't know. Yeah. So
yeah, and I mean,
remember.
you have things like The Office, right? Like you have, they're sitcoms, but they're kind of a separate camera type of scenario, like Modern Family is, kind of talking heads.
Yeah.
And you have like Superstore. I don't think did Superstore do talking heads? I don't remember if they did, but that was very, very sitcom-y.
Yeah.
I feel like the 80s sitcoms, you got more of a through line through the whole series.
Yeah.
Than you do now. Everything now has to be like, self-encapsulated so it doesn't screw up watching anything later. Back then you could have these one-offs, and some of them, you never saw the kid with AIDS again. Like you never see some of these people again. But you could have Webster's apartment burned down and then move to a house.
Yeah.
Which is a big major change.
Well, and also the really good ones in the 80s were like plays. I mean, I remember watching Three's Company, and Three's Company was it was laugh. I mean, they had a lot of laughs, but there were moments when you were having a conversation. They were having a conversation. Or it was Jack, and he was coming home and taking off his jacket and walking into the kitchen and pouring his orange juice or whatever it was. And then you saw that with the Cosby Show. The Cosby Show was kind of set up in that same way, where it was kind of more a play than it was get a laugh, get a laugh, get a laugh, which I think in the 90s, that's what I didn't like about a lot of the sitcoms in the 90s was it just became, they didn't have intros anymore, right? They didn't have the theme song that you could sing and whatever. So they cut that out so they can have longer episodes. And then they just had this laugh track that every line had to get a laugh. And that's what I think kind of turned me off, which I saw a lot of that in the 90s was like, this is just for laughs, And so I think the 80s was a really special time for sitcoms because it was more of like a play and you could watch it and not every line had to have a laugh, And I think a lot of these special episodes, they kind of played it for that in some of them, but for the most part, it was kind of a break, or not a break, but it was kind of like all right, let's see how deep they can get, as opposed to like every line has to have a laugh, which they did sometimes. Like, I guess it just caught 8 or whatever it was that line was. So, yeah.
Yeah, you could let them build that character. You could do the slow burn, and that character could carry over to the next episode and the next episode and the next episode with all that baggage or enlightenment that they've received from those prior episodes. Yeah. And now it's like, nope, it's a clean slate every time, Phil Dunphy is Phil Dunphy. Yeah. Every time you switch the episode, he's going to say something funny and goofy, and there's going to be some miscommunication going on. Yeah. But there isn't a lot of enlightenment or baggage added to the characters that then carries on to the next episode.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point. Because I guess, you're right. Because I never thought I remember the last kind of TV show or sitcom that I kind of watched. It was in 97 and it was Dharma and Greg. And I remember sitcoms at that time in the mid to late 90s, they just started into the episode. It was or maybe they had a, and that was it. And then they went into the episode and I thought, well, that's weird. But then we got to do an episode of this. What did I just watch about the 90s? Because I think that the 90s were kind of where a lot of things kind of led to what we're seeing now, because there's a lot of Dutch angles, a lot of fast cut. That's where that shit came in. So anyways. There was a lot of weird stuff in these episodes in the 80s series, and you had Small Wonder that even had a very special episode. The one with the girl that was kidnapped by her dad. Is that the one? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the little girl's, is friends with them, and they find her face on a milk carton. On a milk carton?
You're like, that was like catching Pokemon, You're like, whoa, I caught one. It was a big deal back then being on a kid on a milk carton.
I forgot about that show because I watched it. I think it was on Saturday afternoons or something. Where what I remember it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. and it was Small Wonder would be on, and it would be like, I didn't realize that she went to school with. Did she go to school? And
at some point she did,
robot. Yeah. And she was like, "This is you." You know, it was just, I forgot about that show. I mean, I remember it, but I forgot that I forgot some details about that show. So yeah.
Yeah, that had its own special episode, and it was, you know, as weird as it can be. You've got Small Out of This World. We've talked about before. That was the other one with Evie, and you know, her dad. The voice of her dad is Burt Reynolds. So circling back to that, you know, it's just these weird shows that you could do. I mean, Alf came out of the '80s, you know, and you could do that stuff. But then you had these family-driven ones like Family Ties, and you know. That sort of thing.
And they had the intro music. You had, you know, you had The Greatest American Hero. You had the song for that. You had Cheers. You know, you had a whole, not the whole song, but you had quite a bit of the song as the intro. And that kind of helped you remember that song. And then there was like LA Law. That wasn't a sitcom, but I remember that theme getting big. And it was like, that was the age of the theme song, you know. Yeah. They don't do that anymore. I mean, I guess they do like with The Office, but it's, I mean, kind of, sort of, I don't know. But
even that they cut down after a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, it was longer, and then it just turned into like maybe 12 seconds.
Yeah. And what's the spinoff of that that's coming out soon?
The Paper.
Oh, The Paper.
Yeah, The Paper, about a Midwest paper company, or not paper company, but like newspaper company.
So I'm looking forward to that.
We'll see. I wonder if they'll have any special episodes with AIDS or kidnapping or SA or, you know, drug use.
Then they'll do it in an ironic way or something, or funny, like with The Office. I don't know if they tackled any special like issues, because they would try like the Diversity Day and all those kind of things, and they would just turn it on its head.
Well, they did, and they had one where you know, Ryan, that showed Ryan with his drug addiction.
Oh yeah,
in New York, like they had that. They had Meredith with her intervention about drinking.
Yeah,
but it was never very special episodes,
right. And it was always played for laughs.
Yeah, always for the laughs.
Yeah. So anyways, what do you got left? You got anything left?
No, that's it. Okay. We've gone through all the special episode types, and you know, it was a specific time and place that they did that. And looking back on it, it's like, it was a big part of our childhood. But looking back on it, still, it's like, where did that come from? Like these were just on the nose and really out of left field when it comes to how brutal and direct a lot of them were, and how earnest a lot of them were. That you know, you could put, like you said, rewatch that Michael J. Fox. Yeah. And his portrayal in that episode is just, it's beautiful. And it is play, like, even though it's like a play, you know, our town type setting.
Yeah.
The whole show itself, even going back to the Tom Hanks, you know, guest starring episode, it is like a little play, and you're spot on with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this was the golden age of sitcoms. I mean, you could say that about probably the 50s when the sitcom actually started, but this is maybe the second golden age of the sitcom, and something you don't see anymore. And as Gen X, right? Yeah, that's where we are. That was our bread and butter, you know, 3 networks. You could plan your evening around what was on TV that night and have a good family time. So everybody that's listening, everybody's that's watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you again soon with another episode of What Did I Just Watch? Thanks. See you, Scott.
Bye.